stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This time, it's my pleasure to introduce Roger. And I'm trying to say, how did I don't want to say, Roger answered an emergency. Having been well-trained for it, he answered an emergency. We had an unfortunate cancellation of a speaker. And I called Roger and said, Roger, would you give us some help? And he agreed. So without any further ado, as they say, I introduce to you Roger, our chief in the Foxborough Fire Department. He's been here since 2007.
9.
9?
9.
You look older than that.
No, I know. I didn't have as much gray hair when I first got here.
Well, anyway, here's Roger, and I hope you'll enjoy his presentation. Roger?
Thank you very much. All right, we're going to see if all the gizmos that they hooked up for me work. It does, all right, so we can dim the lights. First of all, I want to really, truly thank you all for being here and having Charlie and Paul and those guys invite me to come speak. You know, the fire service has been in me since I was 15 years old, and living up in New Hampshire in the city of Nashua, and it's an incredible profession. And one thing that you're going to always find whenever you meet a firefighter is that it's not a job that is Monday through Friday. It is who they are. It's their profession. It's their career. And, oh, you know what? Before Lauren yells at me, I forgot to turn myself on. Am I on now? Am I on? Can you guys hear me? The profession it's in you. Not everybody can be a firefighter. Not everybody can be a paramedic. Because, you know, the facts is that we're a different type of breed. And I still remember when I was 15 years old and I went into the firehouse and I met this young lieutenant, John Allison, known as Jocko. Jocko goes to me, he goes, so you really think you want to be a firefighter? He says, yeah, I really do. He goes, you got to think about this because all the people are going to be running out of the building and you're the crazy fool that's going to run in. And, you know, it takes a different breed. And, but I am extremely proud to be your fire chief. Foxborough is an incredible town with a really energized group of men and women that represent Foxborough Fire Rescue in protecting our community. It's kind of unique. We're a bedroom community with a football stadium. So even though we look at our great little community as a bedroom community of 17,000 people, over 50 times a year we're a city. And so it diversifies the way that we have to operate. It changes the way that we have to think. And it really, it challenges all of us. And so what we're going to do today is I've been asked to kind of talk about the history of the fire service, but really what's the changes? What's changed in the times of history and how we operate today? And I've kind of put this thing together. I've stole all these ideas from about 5 or 6 different PowerPoint presentations, and the guys came to my rescue due to the fact that I've only been the fire chief for 6 years. And we started going through photos of some historical points that have happened here in the town of Foxborough, and it's amazing how many of the guys know the stories. And so I'm going to hopefully pass some of those on to you. A lot of the photos that you're going to see from in here are from the heritage of the town of Foxborough and Foxborough Fire Department and Foxborough Fire Rescue. If you haven't had a chance to come to the new public safety building, I encourage you all. We are proud of our heritage. Foxborough pours our historical values into that public safety building. There's great photos throughout the whole facility of our heritage. We brought some of the items like the old bells, the old sign, Foxborough Fire Department, that was outside the old station at the Common, and that's placed and shown with respect and pride in the public safety building. We have all the pictures of all the past fire chiefs up on the wall. And it's something that I think all of you that treasure history would enjoy. So please stop by at any time and we'll walk you around and show you some of the things that we have. But, so, let's go back in time. When you think about the fire service, it's not something that you just decide, I want to do. You've got to kind of be groomed. Because, I still remember when I was that young man and coming into the firehouse, the first thing they did is say, can you climb that stick? And that's the ladder truck. That's 110 feet up. And I climbed that stick. And they say, can you crawl through that tube? And I crawled through that tube with this big steel tank on my back. And they said, can you carry that dummy? And it was, no, it wasn't Fred that was sitting in the corner falling asleep. It was really a fake dummy that weighed about 180 pounds. And we had to drag it. And they said, you want to be a firefighter? And today, it's all about education. It's about career-driven knowledge. Because have you ever heard the phone ring and you pose a problem and the fire department doesn't show? We have always been known as jack of all trades, right? We were able to try to accomplish and fix everybody's problems. And so with today, we've got to change that around. But it still goes back to our heritage. We're there to help. We want to help. We want to save people's lives, and we want to save people's properties. And the biggest thing I want to point out here is Foxborough's logo. Always ready and proud to serve. That is in the blood of every single man and woman firefighter in this town. And I see it day and day as the fire chief. And for those that have had the bad experiences of having to have us come and visit you and help you, I'm sure you can tell us also stories of how you've seen how they've got a passion to be there and help you. A lot of times people will say, well, it's got to be, I don't even know how you can do it, but running into a burning building and putting your life on the line, you've got kids, you've got family. That's true, we do have families. But it's something in us that makes us tick. It makes us have that drive to want to be able to take care of our neighbors, to take care of our friends and family. And it's amazing. Even when I was in the city of Nashua, I was a young firefighter. I'd go to the high schools and I'd go to the different schools, and my teachers were still there. And they would look at me. And it was when I made chief, I still had 2 of my elementary teachers still in the school. And they came up, and it's just something that is in us all that we want to give back. It's the pride that we have. But it's not just today. It's been in the history books forever. It's been around forever. The passion that we have that drives us. How many of you have heard of neighbors that have kids and uncles and fathers that were all firefighters? You hear it all the time, right? How many of you know the Cummings family, the Triani family, the McNamara's? It doesn't matter what community you go to, it's that same passion, that same past in every community that you visit. And it's just something that rolls, and it's a pride thing. But you know what? When you start really thinking about it, even back to the cave, I can even go past this, the Middle Ages. I can go back to the caveman days. We've always had fire, right? Do you think that was always a problem? How many of you have ever had a brush fire or a campfire and it got away from you, right? How many of you have been working or due diligence to cook something nice and it gets away from you? Accidents happen. And you know what? When fire is a living beast. That thing has its own life. It decides what it wants to do, created on what's around it. It might get a little bit more oxygen. The wind might pick up. Might be a little bit more fuel there. The fire might pick up. The variety of different things have been around all our lives, all the way back to Egypt, to going into the Middle Ages, right? But every time there's been a tragedy, things come out and change. And if you look back, before we weren't even a country, before we were even in the United States, England, in Europe, our fathers of fathers, right, were already having fire codes. We're already teaching people how to be safe, how to live in their homes without putting themselves at risk. I love the second one. in 1189, they had ordinances that said that every homeowner would have ground ladders, would have buckets like you see up there with the Foxborough patch. Not that pretty, right? But everybody started to think of fire safety all the way back to the 1189s, and I'm sure it was even before then, right? We started to see some prevention being done. People were getting educated on how to keep themselves safe all the way back to the Middle Ages. I love this other one. You see what they had insurance? How many people have high insurance costs? They had insurances back then, fire insurance. They started to push prevention all the way back to the Middle Ages and even beyond that. When we started looking at us as a young country, we started to focus on bringing the history from Europe and bringing it here. Our father of fire service in our country was Ben Franklin. He wasn't just an inventor. He was a person that wanted to invent things that made people safe, make them, help them be able to live a better life. And a lot of our fire service, he started. The volunteer fire service started with Ben Franklin. And all the way back, 200 years worth of tragedies is what has built the fire service today from works that he started when he came to this country, when he was one of our forefathers that started us as in the United States. The biggest things that I see, though, is that he started the fire brigade. He started creating the fire society where volunteer fire services were being created through Philadelphia and Pennsylvania and Boston. But here's the thing. It was with that man there we started seeing fire codes in the United States. And one of the things I had printed out, and I don't really want to bring it up because it's heart-wrenching, is firefighter deaths and tragedies that we have had in the United States, all the way back 200 years ago. And every single time that there's been a humongous tragedy, we have seen a change in our society, in the way that we all live. I'll bring one up to you really quick. Coconut Grove. Jack, you know about that, right? Coconut Grove in Boston. Nightclub, restaurant. Had revolving doors. Had beautiful decorations throughout the whole place. Close to 500 people. I think it was, 492-ish? Just shy of 500 people lost their lives at the Coconut Grove fire in Boston. Major fire codes changed after that about how egress points and doors swung in and out, how those rotating doors can't be the only thing that you have. You have to have other exits around it. That you use materials on your walls and ceilings that were flame-proof to protect people. And then we still have issues, even not all that long ago, 12 years ago in Rhode Island at nightclubs, right? Where we lose 100 people. So the facts is that even in the heritage of our earlier American years, and with Ben Franklin, and with us learning from our mistakes and our tragedies, we still have them happen. Why is that? What do you think that could happen? This is where you, the cardboard cutouts, have a moment to talk. What do you think? Because people are taking it for granted. This will never happen to me. This will never happen to us. And then it happens. So again, we have to remember our heritage. We have to remember the histories that have made us the country that we are. We have to look at our communities and looking at how we can better protect our loved ones and our neighbors and our friends. And then we have to make sure that the laws that have been written from those tragedies are also followed. So every time, sometimes people get mad when we come up there and we put out their brush fire, or they're having a campfire and we put it out, or they get in trouble with us because they're not following the fire code. It's because of our history and our heritage, and we don't want to see that happen here. The Civil War. How do you guys think the Civil War had any impact on the fire service? kind of up there already, but think about this. What am I dressed like? I know, captain of the Love Boat, right? What am I dressed like? An officer. The fire service is a paramilitary organization. Even though, not all that long ago, majority of the fire service was volunteer, right? But we still took pride in serving, and we were paramilitary, and a lot of that comes all the way back from the Civil War. Because soldiers were coming back from the war, they needed jobs, they became part of that veteran force that we have seen after every major war, our military forces coming back to their communities that they love and serving their communities either as a police officer or a firefighter in a lot of cases after major events. So it starts right from there. There's our beautiful steamer that you guys helped keep alive right there in one of our older parades. Again, the steam engines were all the way back in the pulling of these engines and the pumps. Remember the old water pumps? And the ladder trucks, I got pictures of that we used to have. It was horse-drawn. All come back from the history of the Civil War era and bringing that into the fire services back home. Then we started getting into the industrial era, where we started to get even smarter and learning and taking that information and bringing it to the next level. 1870, fire alarm systems were starting to be created, right? You know, we started having the situation with things being developed like hydraulics and hydrants, and we started having aerial devices, the sprinkler systems starting. When we hit that revolution of industrial era coming into the world and into the country, everything just blossomed. The horses were no longer pulling the fire trucks. The fire trucks were starting to be motorized, you know? And we started to see changes. But along with that, what do you still see happening? Fire codes, prevention, being put into our industries, into our places of business, because we still were losing lives. We were still losing lives. Not all that, you know, New York, right when they were in the fabric shop, and all those ladies lost their lives because they got locked in, because people were locking the doors and having them work, and then they couldn't get out. We were still learning. We were still making changes in the fire codes. The NFPA came about, the National Fire Protection Agency. I love that truck. That steamer that you guys still keep alive for us and work on, that's a lot of pride there. And we love seeing it, you know, in the parade, even though the wheels are starting to be a little rickety, but we still love it. And we still own one of those in this town. Show our heritage, our history. But you know what? I've been talking about the history earlier ages. We also had tragedy here in Foxborough. Back in the 1900s, May and June of 1900, we had major fires here in Foxborough. One was, what I understand, was a straw hat factory over near where the post office was, or is, and it was a huge fire. And I got these photos from Al Cummings, and it was amazing the impact that it had on our community. And then not too far after that, we had the town hall fire, where the bell came down and killed 3 firefighters. And that monument's still out there today that represents Foxborough Fire and those 3 men that lost their lives for our town. So, again, heritage, history. One thing I want to make sure I never have to do is be that fire chief that has to bury my own. Not a feeling that I want to have. So we work due diligence. We work hard to make sure that our firefighters are trained to the highest level, that our equipment is at a tip-top shape, ready to be used and be put into service at a moment's notice, and that our community is educated and that we do the best that we can to make sure that our fire protection systems and our fire protection laws are followed in our town. you know, technology constantly changes. When probably back in the day when we had our first engine that was motorized, that could carry all the hose, could actually carry water, and had the pump already built in, and it was allowed us to get a faster response and a faster knockdown of fires. And we saved more lives because now we're even quicker at getting that water on the fire. Back in the day of when we first started having engines like this, think about building materials at the time. What were our houses built like? Wood, maybe some wool, right? Cotton. What's today's houses made out of? We'll talk about that in a little bit. But the biggest thing is our technology continued to grow. Our abilities to respond to fires was faster and quicker. And it was faster and quicker for us to get the water on that fire. And then we also started making a change in us, because at that point, and still to that point, all we were was what? Firefighters. Did you see many ambulances back then? Now we're starting to get all of these different services that we provide to go into the new times and the changing times that we're faced with. I was going through all the photos that the guys started showing me around the firehouse. And you probably recognize some of these folks. You probably recognize some of these antiques because they're still around. One of our first hand pumps, right? Lester Goodwin is in there. One of the firefighters that lost his lives is in that one. One of the first fireman's balls. And if you haven't heard, we're bringing that back for September 11th. This is what you see when you walk around the public safety building on the fire department side. This is impressive to me, because they have none of the folks in that department that never knew probably a majority of these people still want to remember them, still want to encourage our youth to remember them and to know where we came from. One of the biggest things that you always hear when you become a fire chief, they pin on that new gold badge, right? And then all your guys come up and they shake your hand and they're whispering in your ear, don't forget where you came from. I come from a young guy wanting to run into burning buildings and save people's lives, and I haven't forgotten that to this day. I got a lot of other things I have to think about now, like budgets, and snowstorms and roof collapses and all of these other things that come with being the chief. But you always remember one thing: don't forget where you came from. The history of the fire service in the town of Foxborough is strong, and just come by the station, you can see it. Today's fire service. White trucks. Tell you, that was a real big one for me to get used to when I first got here. I'm used to red fire trucks. I get here, white fire trucks. It's pride. And boy, oh boy, I would never in a billion years want to change it. It is pride. People know when you show up with the white fire trucks, you're from Foxborough. And the guys take great care of the equipment that you provide to them. These trucks are not cheap. That's the engine. That's a $500,000 piece of equipment. That ladder truck, that's a 1994 that was refurbished. To replace that is going to be $1 million for one truck. So I'm telling you right now, the firefighters in Foxborough, they take a lot of pride in keeping these things clean, keeping them in good shape, because they know they're expensive. They know they're going to be around for a long time. So I kind of want to talk about what's changed. If I was a firefighter back in the early ages, fires still needed to have fuel. Fire still needed to have oxygen. And fire still needed, basically to have some type of ignition for us to have a fire triangle, to have fire. Today, we've got everything from chemicals that don't like each other, that react in a chemical chain reaction. We've got materials that burn faster and hotter than ever before. And our world has changed. And I love what it says here. It's got two firefighters in the middle. It says, shouldn't we be training to fight that dragon? As he looks back at this giant, monstrous, modern-day dragon. Remember I said to you guys that I would bring this back. Back in the day, when I was just a young firefighter, if I had a match and I dropped it into a trash can, like the one in the back of the room, in a normal-sized room, like a 12-foot by 12-foot room, it would take 5, maybe 6 minutes for that fire to engulf that room. Today, look around us. What's the carpet made out of? Plastics. Is this paint anymore? It's got plastics and propylenes in it. Everything around us is made of plastics and propylene. It's like gasoline. It takes now that same match or that same little candle dropped in that trash can in that same 12-foot by 12-foot room. It takes no more than 3 minutes now for that room to be engulfed in flames. Now here's the thing. When this stuff all burns, do you think that it's healthy for you? We're putting so much chemicals into the atmosphere and into the air that now people that are caught in that situation get knocked out just like that. Cyanide gas is created by particles that haven't completely burnt and done the combustion process. Our worlds have changed. When I was a young firefighter, I hate to say it, we used to run into burning buildings with the tanks on our back, but we never put the mask on. It was too encompassing. I couldn't really see, right? We'd come out, we'd have black soot all over our face, right? Didn't really think all that much of it. But also when I was a younger firefighter, our age expectancy was like 54 years of age. Today it's different. We encourage, we push, we enforce that our firefighters wear the protection. But they also now feel the impacts if they don't follow those safety procedures because our world has changed. The combustion process has changed. The materials have changed. And so we put our firefighters at a lot higher risk. We put our residents, even though it's cheaper to buy all this plastic stuff and it looks really cool and really nice, we do put everybody more at risk when they have a fire. Have you ever had just a small fire in your house? Anybody? Jack, you remember when you went in there, all the plastic stuff was all melted. It would be your phone, your plastic phone would all be melted right down the wall. Everything melts. And you go, it was not that much of a fire. It went so fast. Chief, I can't believe how fast that fire went. The animal has changed. We always called that fire the living beast. Think about it. For a fire to be able to happen, it needs fuel, it needs oxygen, and it needs heat. Think about this. If you guys don't breathe, what happens if you don't breathe? You suffocate and you die. If you don't eat, no, it's not Jenny Craig. If you don't eat, what happens? You starve and you die. And if you don't stay warm on those cold winter nights like we just had this past winter, what happens? Hypothermia, and you die. That's why you look at this and you're saying, what? It's a living beast. Any way you look at it. It needs the same things we do. And we train our firefighters to understand how they have to beat the beast. But things have also changed. When you look at the history of our communities, we had these villages, we had these communities. Look at our houses. Have they gotten a little bit bigger in the last 30, 40 years? Anybody been down North Street lately? Our homes have gotten a lot bigger. By having a bigger home, what do you mean? Why is that going to cause me any more problem? Bigger fire load. More potential chance. The stuff that we have, like I've already talked about, the materials that they use to build the furniture that we live in has also changed. Increased fire loads. The other things that are changing is the way that they build houses. If you look at downtown USA, it's all either balloon construction. It had a lot of post and beam construction, right? Post and beam, that you can have a good sized fire in there and the thing's still standing solid. Today we have all these things that they use in the new construction called truss. Truss plates are dangerous. They're strong. They're great for helping the contractors build them fast. But if they get exposed to fire for a period of time, 20 minutes, they're already at risk of failure. Majority of the fire service where there's a lot of new construction like this, like down in Florida, out in Arizona, some of these bigger cities that are not all that old, that don't have the heritage and the history like we do here in New England, they have a 20-minute rule. If they can't put a good damper on that fire in 20 minutes, they're starting to worry about failure. They're starting to get their people out. They're going to get their people off the roof because these plates pop right off when they get hot and they've been heated. 20 minutes is not a long time, right? Our average response time for the town of Foxborough is around 5 minutes. And if you're out on the outskirts, it's sometimes 8 to 9 minutes. 20 minutes is not a long time. Folks, this is what I'm talking about in 3 minutes, what a single match or a single candle can do in today's home. In today's home. That means even if you were right there at the time it came, that it started, it's already got 3 minutes is all it needs, and I'm getting there in 4 to 5 minutes on a good day. So again, you have to remember your safety with today's technology and today's fires, folks, and make sure that you don't hesitate and wait to get out of the building. To make sure you have good working fire smoke detectors and CO detectors. Making sure that you have a fire extinguisher that works. Biggest things that I can tell you and encourage you to kind of look at. Did I go a little fast, Charlie? You guys didn't ask any questions. I'm hoping you're holding yourself all back.
We save it to the end, Roger.
Oh, that's perfect. This is just a few of the members in Foxborough Fire Rescue. And as you can see in this picture, they are extremely proud of who they are. They are extremely proud to be your fire department, your emergency services, and they are honored to be able to take care of you and to be there for you. Now that's my spiel. I figured you guys would ask me some questions along the way.
A quick question, if you have a home that's, say, 50 years old.
Yep.
When should you start worrying about the wiring and all?
Again, 50 years old, 100 years old, all your wiring should always be checked. Here's the things that you have to remember. The houses are that old or have balloon construction, and they don't have the best of insulation. We all, because we're in New England, have to always worry about those darn mice. And so you should always have an inspection of your system. Now, again, some of it's going to be very difficult because it's in the walls. But you're going to see signs if there's any wear or tear by dimming of the lights. Or if you turn on a light switch and it takes a second for you to get power in your light to come on. You're going to have to make sure that you check your panel. But I would always, first of all, I'm petrified of electricity because I've been zapped so many times in structures that I'm always a little hesitant when I see that. But I would always try to keep up on the proper maintenance of your homes. And if you are having any flaws, dimming of lights, short circuits in your switches, circuits in your plugs, those will be your initial signs that you might want to get it further inspected by an electrician. But that's the other thing. Make sure you're using people that are properly trained and certified to do that type of work. I say that for electricians, and I also say that for plumbers. You want the appropriate people to be doing that.
There's been some discussion recently in town about the height of buildings.
Yes,
And,
yeah,
the ability of the fire department.
absolutely. There has been some discussions with some apartment complexes that are looking to move into town. Just so you know, we have a 110-foot stick, 110, 115, counting on how you look at it. The rule of thumb for the fire service is that that type of ladder apparatus is good for up to 7 stories. So when you get close to 7 stories, and depending on how far that you actually are getting away from the building with landscaping, those angles have to be looked at. That's the type of stuff that I told the Board of Selectmen and the town manager, is the rule of thumb is when we start getting close to 6, 7 stories, we want to look at the angle and the height of that structure. Outside of that, it's then a problem with our ladder apparatus that we have, and then you have to start going to more like a high-rise look with stand pipes, high-rise packs, and so on, like you see in the bigger cities.
What about the stadium?
Stadium, we're good. Our ladder truck, because we can get pretty darn close, we can hit the light towers, and we're good there for the height.
How about when you have second and third alarms, the general alarm? How
Yeah.
does that work and who calls that?
All right, perfect. We're a small community. We have only 30 firefighters that work in the town of Foxborough, 1 station. We have 7 firefighters, and we dropped down to 6 right now, that work on duty every day. Think about this. We also run a very active ambulance service. And a lot of times, and I'm going to plant a seed and I'm going to come back to it. A lot of people always ask me, why is that ambulance being chased by a fire truck? I'll talk about that in a minute. But with only 7 at a max, and then you have the deputy chief and myself, you need help. We all need help. The Walpoles, the Sharons, the Renthams, the Mansfields, all of us are all in the same boat. We rely on each other, and that's called mutual aid. We have mutual aid agreements, and we belong to 2 mutual aid compacts. We're really associated heavily with Norfolk County, so we're really big with the Norfolk County fire chiefs. But we also about Bristol County, so we have a lot of affiliations and relationships with all the Bristol communities that are on this side of our borders. When you strike a working fire, like we had not all that long ago at the terminals, a working fire automatically brings me in 3 communities to the fire, and it backfeeds the station with 2 other fire departments. So we automatically get 5 other communities to come in and help us. That's on a known working fire. Then as that fire progresses, and hopefully it doesn't, hopefully we get there quick enough and we knock it down fast enough, once it starts to escalate, we go to a multiple alarm fire, right? That's when we start striking that 2nd alarm, that 3rd alarm. And what that means is that we're bringing in more assets, more fire trucks, more firefighters from further communities to come to our aid. Where we're limited with our staffing, we will strike those alarms a little quicker because we need to get that help in here a little quicker. So that's a great question. We are not strong enough to be just independent on ourselves. We have to depend on all of our neighboring communities as they have to depend on us. Good question. Now, I'm going to bring back that seed I planted. When you think about this, we have a medical call. We have graduated Foxborough to an ALS system for ambulance calls. That means advanced life support. By doing that, we have increased the amount of paramedics that we have on the fire department so that we can do those type of ALS calls, those advanced life support procedures on people that are having life-threatening medical concerns. When that ambulance rolls out on that ALS, they have only one focus, and one focus only. That is on you. They're only going to focus on you. They're going to be working on your medical needs and just taking care of what we need to do to keep you alive or to make you feel more comfortable, whatever the situation might be. The fire truck that's responding behind them, their job function and their number one function is to how to extricate you, how to get you out of your home. how to get you out of your place of business, or if you're in an auto accident situation, how to get you out of that car or that vehicle. That's the system that we have. And due to the fact that we don't have a lot of staff, and this has happened to us multiple times, while they're out doing medical care and taking care of this person that might be having a heart attack or having a stroke or having some life-threatening injuries or concerns, we get a report of a building fire. Could you imagine if they had to run all the way back in that pickup truck or that other vehicle to the firehouse, drop that one off and jump back into the fire truck and respond? What did I just show you a minute ago? Doesn't take long, right, for the fire to get going? Time is precious. We need that time. And because of our staffing levels where they are, we then respond right from that call to the fire call, and that's why we have the engine. Does that make sense now? A lot of people don't realize that until they kind of hear how I explain how we operate. So just for those that have always wondered about that. So, what other questions? Sure.
Two questions.
Sure.
The alarm goes off, they're in the trucks, they're going somewhere.
Yep.
What's on their mind? And I'm sure it depends on whether it's a commercial building or residential.
Exactly.
And kind of the second question, when you call in mutual aid, you get a bill from that, from the other towns?
No, that's one fortunate thing we don't do is we don't bill each other for mutual aid. Boy, that would be a paper trail problem. But let's talk about that. I think the first question that you ask is very, very important. Every single one of us has got built into our memory banks the importance of pre-planning our communities and knowing our communities. And a lot of things go through our minds when a call comes in. For example, if I've got a report of alarms in the building at an apartment complex at 2 in the afternoon on Wednesday, right, versus an alarm going off in the apartment complex at 2 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday, do I get a little bit more worked up on one versus the other?
Yes,
Yeah, why?
because you're going to may need to make many more rescues at 2 o'clock in the morning.
I got a lot more risk, a lot more life risk at 2 in the morning, right, versus 2 in the afternoon during the week time in an apartment complex. These are the type of things that go through our minds, right, when we hear the call. I'll give you a perfect example, like I'm jumping into my car at the apartment. Jack sees me all the time, right? The terminals, just a few weeks ago. It's a blizzard. It's very cold. It's very windy. And I'm getting a report that there's a fire in the building and that there's a roof collapse. So I'm listening to my radio as I'm getting dressed, and I hear the captain that's on duty say, I got smoke showing. Right? Now, what is going through my head? What do I know about the terminals? Well, it's a very, very large, right, storage area, 500,000 square feet approximately, of a warehouse full of stuff. I know what kind of stuff it is. There's a lot of alcohol, is because it's got beer and wine, but it also has a lot of other stuff that is stored there because it's a warehouse. So it's got building materials also, and that's what's actually burning. So I've got in my back of my mind, I know what? It's a warehouse,
Sprinklers, too.
and it has sprinklers, but I also know I've got a roof collapse. So was any of that sprinkler system compromised? Is the rest of the structure potentially compromised because of the snow load and the roof collapse? Is the electrical utilities involved in the fire? So we start to use all that education that we've gained through school and from experience to start pre-planning a plan of attack as we're responding. Now, I'm doing that while I'm driving. Fortunate, the captain's able to do that as he's on the right side of the fire truck and he's got a driver responding with him. That's if we're at 6. If he's at 7, he's in the car doing the same thing I'm doing. So we're multitasking when we respond to any call because we have a lot of things that we're thinking about. The other thing that's also really, really great about Foxborough is we know everybody. We're a bedroom community. We're family. And sometimes we know when we're going to a certain situation that we might have Roger that is on oxygen and that is bedridden living there. And that's also triggers what type of reaction I need to have while I'm responding and when I get to that scene once I see what I see. Now, did you guys ever know that smoke talks to firefighters? Smoke talks to us. When we're rolling in and we can tell by the color of that smoke what's going on. If it's light brown and it's got not really a lot of push, it's just kind of trickling out, what do you think that's telling me?
Just starting?
It's just starting, right? And it's probably ordinary combustibles at this point, because if it had a lot of black in it, what would that tell me? It's got a lot of plastic in it, a lot of petroleum type products in it. If it's really pushing out of the eaves and the windows, what's that tell me?
You're in trouble.
That thing has got a good head start on me. And I've got to now be cautious, and my firefighters need to be cautious, because this fire has got a good jump on us. So the smoke actually talks to us and gives us some indications of what we should be dealing with. Now, the other things that I didn't really get into, but we are going to talk about real quick here, is all the other services that we're now dealing with. We have hazmat, hazardous materials. That's what the guys, they jump into those suits, and they sound like Darth Vader from Star Wars. And they're going into these suits, and they're dealing with chemicals that could kill them with one breath. We're paramedics. We are an EMS service, right? We're a double-headed coin. We provide fire service and EMS services all with the same person. We have technical rescue. Somebody brought up the stadium. Could we have one of those workers that are working up on those lights get trapped? Can somebody get trapped up on one of our water towers? So we have also technical rescue that works with heights and also underground. We have members that belong to these two teams. We have members of the hazmat team and members that are on that technical rescue team. We also have members of our department that are part of the federal system of USAR. When there's an earthquake or a disaster, and the federal government's going in to assist to do search and rescue of the debris and the wreckage, we have members that are part of the USAR team. The folks here are gung-ho. The firefighters that you have protecting you are gung-ho. They want to be the best that they can be. And I love it. It makes me so proud of these people when you see what they're able to do and what they can accomplish. And they're not my kids, but they sure do feel like it sometimes. So.
How often do you get cats out of trees?
Well, let me put it this way. How many times have you seen a skeleton still in a tree? We don't get those calls I can't tell you the last time I got that call, but we get calls of animals like dogs on ice. We've gotten some crazy ones, but I haven't had a cat call in a long time. A long time. I will say my son did a year and a half ago. He's a firefighter in the city of Nashville, and he got a cat call. So, yes.
How's your hydrant? What do you think of the hydrants and the snow and everything?
Well, thank you for bringing it up. As you probably all read throughout the whole winter storm, I was pleading. I was working with Foxborough Cable, and I was pleading. And I was on the radio, and I was pleading because we were in a really bad situation. I think the water department does a great job of marking them with the flags, but they're also like us. They are a small group, and they were overwhelmed. And I want to thank those residents that adopted their own personal hydrant and kept them clean for us. But, we had a lot of strategies that we were talking about, but some of them didn't work because we were fearful we were putting people at risk from being hit because the snowbanks were so high. So we all worked together. We got, I won't say we got 100%, but we got a good 80% jump on the hydrants so that we felt comfortable enough that we were able to protect our community. But it was nerve-wracking, I will not lie. And so, you know, in the future, we just need to keep a jump on it. And any resident that can adopt their hydrant near their home, we greatly appreciate that. And we do have a great group of volunteers that were ready to go, but the hydrants were so buried and we would have needed more than just shovels. And the snowbanks were so high, we were fearful we'd get somebody hurt. But it was a bad winter for that. And again, it was also an incredible winter for roofs. We were watching that every day. Bill Caspera, the building commissioner, and I were talking. The town manager, Bill Keegan, and I were talking, and we were all trying to get the message out there and strategize on our own community how bad and how severe the snow loads were on our roofs. And fortunate, our residential homes didn't get impacted like the South Shore did, but some of them were darn close. And so we haven't had winters like this in a long, long time, but I hope this ain't a trend.
How bad was the roof damage in town?
We had probably a half dozen residential type collapses, but then we had that big commercial one at the terminals that was huge. A huge, huge loss, financial loss. But we also saw a lot of proactive things going on. We saw a lot of neighbors helping neighbors with their neighbors, you know, getting the snow off the roofs. We saw a lot of volunteers trying to help some of the seniors. And that's one thing that's, again, it sounds like a broken record, but it's so true, is that we had that passion of helping each other in this community. And so, but it was critical, it was severe.
Yeah, just notice on my street,
Yep.
a home has been hit and they've had to move out for probably 5 or 6 days.
Yeah.
They're putting new insulation, I see dumpsters loaded with stuff, looks like a disaster.
Right.
What tips can you give as far as preventing the ice dams from forming?
The ice dams are huge, and ice dams, just so everybody clearly understands, ice dams are created because there's heat loss. So if you have an area in your home that you're getting a lot of ice dams, during the summer, focus on getting more insulation in that area. Because that's exactly what's happening when you get these ice dams, is that the heat is being released, it's melting the snow and turning to ice. And that's the problem. Bill Caspera is working, Lauren's in the other room, but I do believe that they're working to do some type of media release to educate people on ice dams and on roof loads for future snowstorms that we have.
I think the tendency when it's cold weather like we've had would be to kick the temperature up to maybe 70, 72, 75. I've heard people say that. Wouldn't it be beneficial to actually lower your temperature?
Well, again, you have, it's a checks and balances. You know, you have to be able to not freeze in your own home.
Yeah.
What I would say is that while it's the summer, the spring to summer, right now I'm thinking that your neighbor had a lot of ice dams, had a lot of damage in the home. So the best thing is those areas that were impacted the hardest is, if you've got to do those repairs, is to really evaluate your R value of insulation that you have in that area. And that's from a non-builder type guy, but that's what I would be focusing on. And you know, there's a lot of builders out there that you make sure you get one that you believe in, that you trust, will be able to assist you in understanding the R values in those areas where you're having water dams, ice dams.
One last question for me anyway. So you show up at a fire.
Yep.
What do you do about the electric, the gas, the
Yep.
propane? You guys shut that off? Do you have to wait for something?
We have the ability to shut off most gas. We actually, when I have a working fire, as the incident commander, if Deputy Chief Steve Bagley or one of the captains is there, one of the first calls that we have when we say we have a working fire is to contact our utilities. And so they're on their way. We all understand very, very clearly that there's still live utilities while we're there at the initial phase of the fire, but we usually have the utilities there. We're not big on popping the actual meters off of our electrical. Even though I have, one of my captains is a master electrician, I probably would trust him to do it, but we do have the ability to shut off gas lines if we can get to them safely, but usually it's the utilities companies that are being dispatched once we state we have a working fire.
So you have to wait for them also.
Well, yeah, in some situations. I do have one thing else I want to show real quick. I was holding this for the end, after I know there's no more questions. Any more questions? All right, can we dim those lights one more time, Paul? I would hit the last one. Let's turn the lights right off. If I can get this thing now. Oh, yeah, I got a mouse here. Okay.
I wish you could see the sadness of a man as his livelihood goes up in flames, or a family returning home only to find their house and belongings destroyed. I wish you could know what it is to search a burning bedroom for trapped children. I wish you could see a wife's horror as I check her husband of 40 years for a pulse and find none. I start CPR, hoping against hope to bring him back, knowing it's too late. I wish you could know the unique smell of burning insulation, the taste of soot-filled mucus, the feeling of intense heat through your turnout gear, the sound of flames crackling, and the eeriness of being able to see absolutely nothing in dense smoke. A sensation that I have become too familiar with. I wish you could be in the emergency room as the doctor pronounces the beautiful little 5-year-old girl that I pulled from a burning building dead, and whose mother will never hear the words, "I love you, Mommy, again." I wish you could know the frustration I feel in the cab of the engine. The driver with his foot pressing down hard on the pedal, my arm tugging again and again at the air horn chain, as the building burns with people inside, wishing we could get there faster. I wish you could read my thoughts as I help pull a teenage girl from the mangled remains of her car. What are her mother's reactions going to be when she finds out her daughter is gone? I wish you could know how it feels to walk in the back door and greet my parents and family, not having the heart to tell them that I almost didn't come home from my last call. I wish you could know the brotherhood and self-satisfaction of helping save a life, or preserving someone's property, of being there in a time of crisis, or creating order from total chaos. Unless you have lived this kind of life, you will never truly understand or appreciate who we are or what our job really means to us.
Not that I want to send you all home with tears in your eyes, but if you can turn the lights on. I said at the beginning, we're a unique breed. Not everybody can be a firefighter or an emergency personnel, but we do take a lot of pride and we go through a lot. And I want to thank you guys very much for having me here tonight. I hope I was able to enlighten you a little bit and answer some of your questions.
Why, but, well, my oldest stepson